We will get started now then. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our information session. We put today's session together to cover some of the common stumbling blocks we're seeing in the application process, both in Upskill Maine and our registration system. So hopefully if that's of value to you today. This session will be recorded and we'll get it out to participants this afternoon. A few quick housekeeping requests. We just ask that everybody please mute. It will help minimize that background noise. Kristen Wygand, our Workforce Development Coordinator, is here from York County. She will be answering questions in the chat. There will also be a live Q&A session at the end. If for any reason we are not able to get to everybody's questions, we will certainly include those in the email that goes out this afternoon with those resources. So let's dive in. What does today's session look like? We're going to briefly cover the types of funding and training that are allowable under this grant. You'll likely have seen these slides before or are familiar with the information from your MOA. Then we're going to look at the common stumbling blocks in each section, and that includes a walkthrough of the funding request, the registration system, and closeout. We're going to look at amendments and sendbacks. And then we're going to jump into Upskill and look at what's new and some resources that are available to you as well if you get stuck. So allowable training, what is allowed under this grant? Trainees must be Maine residents or work for a Maine organization. This training is for frontline incumbent workers. So you'll see that C-suite, volunteers, board members, or elected officials do not qualify for training under this grant. It must be training that enhances an individual's skills or advances their career. And of course, training can occur through Maine's community colleges, through a third-party trainer, or through an in-house training. So what does this disclude? Annual training that's required by the company, anything that includes travel expenses or employee wages, publication subscriptions, and non-professional development training. So what does that mean? If you're in accounting and looking at QuickBooks training, that would qualify, but maybe learning how to crochet may not be the best professional development training that would be covered. Next, examples and types of training. I won't go into these deeply, but just know that the slides will be included. Industry-specific training, role-specific training, professional development for career advancement, company-wide training, soft skills training, and of course, training required for certification or licensure. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Chris Young, our Workforce Development Coordinator out of the Bangor region, to cover the funding application.
Thank you, Heather, and welcome today. So I'm just going to cover the most important part of the grant is where you request funds for one of your training activities. The common stumbling blocks, the reasons why some of our members get sendbacks or things that are incomplete are templates. So as you go through, I'm going to walk you through a training application, a funding request, and there'll be a point there where I'm going to upload the participants in that training. That would be that template, and I'll describe that more then. Flat rate trainings. So there's two different types of trainings, right? There's where somebody is going to provide a service for you and they're going to charge you per individual. So it's $90 a person, whether it's, and then it's, 10 people, 20 people, then it would still just be $90 a person. And there are other types of trainings, professional developments and things like that, where somebody comes in and says, for this cost, I will provide training for your staff. So the cost is stagnant, meaning it's one amount of money, whether you have 15 people in the training or 25 people in the training. And there's a point in the application where you can determine that for us. Sometimes the details need to be expanded. We need good descriptions on what is the training, what's the course, who's putting on the course. The titles of those people, if they have a website, a training website, it's valuable to us as we approve those things. And then the difference between a stage 2 training request where you're going to use a third-party vendor or even an in-house trainer, as opposed to having one of our community colleges do the training. Now, these are the stage 2 trainings, which means you're doing a funding request, which I'm going to show you, but you're doing it for either a course or a training that would take place at one of our 7 community colleges. And the difference between the two is once you do the application to a training that's going to be at a community college and you provide the participants and all that type of information, that's it for that request. You won't have to close it out. You won't have to put in participant results. It'll actually be the community college that does that. And then the difference in how the funding works for a college training, for a stage 2 training, is that in most cases, we would reimburse you for our approved amount of funding for that training. In the case of a college training, we're going to send our approved amount directly to that community college. And then that community college should reduce the amount you owe by that amount. And Heather, if you want to click me to the next slide. And I'm also, so I'm just going to take you through this request. I'm going to share my screen. And where do I want to go? I want to go right there. Give me just a second. Hopefully I'm sharing the right screen. Can everybody see apply for compact membership?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So before you do a funding request, you've got to sign into our portal. And that's just this simple. And I'm going to show you the portal screen in just a second. But you would obviously sign in. So now we're going to go to a compact member funding request. I'm going to go back home for a second. Okay, and this is what you'll see. So when I said sign in, this is where you would do that. Okay, I'm already signed in. And then immediately this menu should show up at the top of your screen. These are the MQC Put Maine to Work projects. These are scholarship applications, both things that someone's going to speak about later. And then this is a compact member funding request for one of the trainings that you would like us to assist in the funding. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on that. Very quickly at the top of the screen is all of the information that you're going to need to either gather or have in front of you when you do this request. And I always tell people it's good to take a look at this and then get it all ready before you actually sit down to do the request. Because if you don't do that, you'll be ending up waiting for people to email you back or call you back with specific pieces of the information that you need. Okay. And you can see in my list, because this is just a test account. I don't have any existing funding requests that show up here. Typically, for an organization like yourselves, if you had already done 6 or 8 trainings, they would all show up right here, right? As either inactive, which means they've completed, or active, which means they're currently going on, or they haven't completed yet in the future, or it's a future request that hasn't started yet. So you would see those things there, but we're not going to do that. I'm going to click quickly over to request funding. Okay. I'm going to run out of time here, so I'm going to get yelled at, but I'm going to just go quickly. So we're going to do so I run a little machining shop and I try to train my employees. We don't have very many employees. Okay. I'm going to do a training this week on Wednesday, and it's going to end on Friday. Can the training be found on a website? It's not, because it's a local instructor who's going to come and work with my employees on different machining processes. Is the training cost at a flat rate regardless of the number of students? Yes, it is. Okay, because this person's going to charge me a certain amount, and I may have 3 or 4 people there. depending on whether, as the owner of the business, I'm scheduled to play golf that day or not. Just kidding. Okay, so we're going to put 3 for now. Okay, and they're each going to participate in 20 hours of training. Okay, and that person who's going to put the training on for me has told me that they're going to do it for $3,300. Okay. And that means that of my 3 people, the retail price per frontline worker is $1,100. Okay. Brief description of the course. Oh, come on, Chris. And my employees that are going to take this are going to be cross-trained on 2 words, Chris. Oh, this is a drop-down menu. All the things that's going to help my employees. Okay, it's going to help in all 3 of those areas. And does this training lead to a credential? Not in this case. The person's not offering us a certificate. He's just giving us a training. So the next thing I'm going to do, it's going to take us to the next page at some point here. Okay. Training provider type. It is another training vendor. So I'm bringing somebody in from the outside. So I'm going to say I'm pretty much sure they're not on this list. So no. So my vendor's name is a generic email. And phone number 207. And at this point, he doesn't have a website. He is located in Old Town, Maine. So I've provided all this information. Notice anything that has a red asterisk, you've got to fill those spots in, or it's not going to let you proceed. Okay, I'm going to add my participants. Okay, so I can do that 1 or 2 different ways. I can, by adding an uploaded document, which I'm going to add a file. I'm going to choose a file, and I just did that. Where did I put it? Maybe I didn't save it. Thought I did. Upskill training template. All right, bear with me. And I'm going to save that real quick. So I should be able to. There's my upskill document. It's going to add the files. Okay,
Chris,
so they
just to
exist it exists right here, but I want to take a pause here for a moment because it's not going to allow me to move on until this list populates right here. So it usually takes a minute for the system to catch it and grab it. So if I tried to move on and actually went to submission before that had uploaded, it would show that you had never submitted your participants. Okay, so I'm going, and you can just simply hit the refresh button if you want. Still hasn't kicked it yet.
And Chris, just to cover briefly, the document that you just uploaded, where is that template coming from?
It's coming from right there inside the system. So if you noticed when I was when I clicked add files, there was another button there for me to go to the actual template. That template is specific for this upload to this portal. So what I encourage you to do is download the template, keep it in a file. You can call it your Harold Alphon grant folder, whatever you call it. But in that template, you're always going to go to that template, put in your new participants and your new training, and then rename it as that and save it. So let's try one more time and see if that has populated yet. And why aren't they showing up yet? Chris, do you know if it's going to let me go on without that?
So, Chris, hit the drop-down arrow over to the right-hand side, if you would, please.
Yep.
Okay, that's just delete. That should have allowed you to pull your recipients.
It's still not loading them. Usually it comes faster than that.
Let's delete and try reattaching, Chris.
Sure.
And to all of our folks joining us today, every once in a while we do run into that where the system's fairly smart and it will grab the form and pull that information in. But if you do run into a challenge, sometimes it's as simple as deleting and reattaching the document.
So I wonder, Chris, if it's still working on it because it says I can't delete it.
Okay, so then it probably is still working on it. And Diane, if you download that to your, great question, if you download that to your computer, we have not adjusted that form. It's going to stay the same. So if you download it, there we go. If you download it today, it should be the same form 6 months from now.
So my Excel document actually will kick and pull the names of all the people that, so you might have 25 names on here. That's why the template is easier than doing them one at a time. As you can see, my business is a family-run business. And each amount requested, all that looks good. So I'm going to go to the next screen. And all I'm doing now is testing that everything I put in there, to the best of my knowledge, is accurate, ready to go. I checked my own math. So you're going to click to yes that you've attested it, and you're going to click submit. And I should get some type of a verification here. And this is what you'll see when you've kind of reached that point where you have sent it to us. Okay, and I think that's the last piece that I was going to do. And I am going to stop sharing and kick it over to my colleague, Diane.
Thank you, Chris. I am ready to do the next piece, and I'm going to share my screen. And we're going to walk through what it looks like once you get your class uploaded and you receive an email that gives you the information that your class has been created. Now we're going to move to our second portal, which we call Lumens, and we're going to talk about how to get your employees registered for the training into and their employer profiles created. So some of the stumbling blocks are folks don't always realize that there are two systems. So we have the upskill grant funding request portion, and then we have the employee profile and class registration portion. So we call them classes, but they're any of the trainings that are third party. The only time you don't go into Lumens to register your students into a class is going to be when you're working with one of the community colleges, and they'll take care of all of that for you. There are two profiles, and if generally the majority of our organizations use the full profile and they create them themselves. But if they're using their work email, not email, I'm sorry, if they're using their work address as the learner's home address, they can do that. But when you have multiple addresses with the same phone number or the same address, it's going to automatically save those as drafts so that we can take a look at them and before we convert them to learners so that we can eliminate any duplications. And we just check over the information and make sure that they are. And this happens sometimes with some of our organizations, like our summer camps, where the employees are actually living there and that's their summer home address. So their work and home address are the same. So if you've never logged into this system or you're new to the to this portal, you're going to you're first going to go to the login screen, and that's going to show you that's going to bring you to the company user. You're going to put in your HA number, which when we create your account, we're going to let you know what that is. And then from there, you're going to put that in. You're going to be a company user. And for your first time logging in, you're going to use your forgot password. And that's going to send a link to the primary contact's email address to set a password for that account. So once you get that password set up and you hit the sign in button, it's going to take you over to the next screen, which is going to be where you're already logged in. And this is what this is going to look like. This will be your dashboard. And you're primarily going to live in these two spaces here between classes and employees. So again, first time using the system, you're going to add your employees to the system. Give me a minute, it logged me out. Sorry about that. There we go. So you want to go to your employee list. You can search for your employee, especially if they were an employee of a different organization. They may already have a profile in here, in which case we want to make sure that we're not creating another duplicate record for them. So you want to always do a check to make sure your employee is in here or not in here. And do a search. Nothing came up. So now I can go in and I can create a profile for them. And a lot of these screens have small, almost hidden drop-down menus. So sometimes they're in different spots than you might expect them to be in, but the add new button is just below where you did the search, and you're going to click full employee profile if you're filling out all of their information. If you want the employee to fill that out, please make sure that they know you're going to do this, because they will get an email with a link, and very often the employee is not aware that they're being signed up for a training or that there's funding attached to the training they're going to be attending. So they're not anticipating a link, and they might think it's a phishing attempt and either ignore it or delete it. So we're going to do a full employee profile so we can walk through all of the screens today. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to put their email address in. I can't type my own name today. So their email address becomes their username. But if they have a nickname or something that they're generally known as, you can put that in there as well. So all of that information will fill out their primary address type, whether it's home or work, will fill in, they need a phone number to be filled in. And then as we go through the different screens, it won't let you move forward until you put all of the required information in there. Yes, I'm currently employed by the Half Test Center. Your company name will automatically be in there. Date of birth is required. That's our unique identifier that we use so that your employees can be found. Race and ethnicity can be unknown or unreported, but you do want to try and capture those because they are important fields that we require. And then at the end of the on the third screen, you're going to put your company name. And whatever your HA code is. So you enter those. That BI code and your HA membership number are both the same. So once you have your employee in, you're going to go back and you can go to your classes and you'll see that you have your webinar course right here. And again, this little radio button on the left is actually a drop-down menu where you can assign your employees. You can view your roster, you can print it. I personally always like to go to view roster first because it gives me a view of the different aspects of the training. So I can see, number one, there's nobody assigned to this training yet. I can verify the information up here. I can verify the dates that it's running, what type of class it is, where it's located, and how many seats are available versus how many are enrolled and how many contact hours. So I can verify all of my information is correct. And then I can go here and I can assign additional employees to this class. So I'm going to assign Kristen, Chris, and Diane to this class. And I can do that all in one piece, but then I can, after I add them, I say, oh, wait, I forgot to do Chris. So I can go back and I can add Chris Young. So you have that ability to either, if you have a long list, and we have some companies that do like 85 trainings, 85 employees in a training, they can get a little unwieldy to add them all to the training. I can't add Chris because I don't have any seats left, which means I'd have to go back and do an amendment and add more seats to that training, which we can do. And I think we're going to talk about in the next section. Is that correct? So all of my employees are attached to this training. And let me go back one step here. And I can see all of them here. So I'm all set here and I don't need to do anything else. I am done. I got all my employees in, all their information is correct, and I can tell because they have their full phone numbers here. And they're attached to my company because I'll only see employees that belong to me. If somebody worked for a previous organization and they are not showing up here, you want to reach out to your workforce coordinator to have them help you with that, and we can help find that person and verify that that's them, and then change their employer to you so that you'll see them. And I think that's all I had for this section. So thank you.
Great,
And I'm going to
thank-
turn it back to Heather.
Thank you, Diane. And I believe Chris Winstead is up next. Let me just get my computer up here.
Thank you, Heather. So you saw how to put in a funding request, and you saw how to make sure that you get all of your employees added to the class list. So the next step in our process is closeout. Now, what closeout takes into account is that nothing has changed from your funding request through the end of that program, right? Jen's going to be covering amendments after I do my presentation, but closeouts are really going to be triggered by your end date. So if you have a training that has an end date that is, let's say, 6 weeks in the future from now, right, and I'm looking to close it out today, the system's not going to allow me to close that out. I actually have to speak with one of the staff because I need to, obviously, if the program has ended, let's say it ended early, I'm going to need to do an amendment to change those dates in the system. Why that's important. One of the things that we're working on for all of your employees is to be able to create a comprehensive training record so that we have all of the information for all of the trainings that they've had. So really thinking about closeout, it's 100% dependent on hitting that end date for your training like Chris put in his request. Some common stumbling blocks in the closeout process is matching lists. So on your funding request, if you put in 5 students, but you only registered 3 in Lumens, we're going to be asking some questions as to where are those other 2 people, right? So we compare that request to the data that Diane just put into our registration portal. No changes are allowed after closeout. So if you come to the end date, let's say our end date was yesterday, for example, and all of a sudden you wanted to add 5 people to that, we have to do an amendment. So you're really going to, as soon as you know that something changes with your funding request, whether it's your start or end dates, the number of participants, the dollar amount, you're going to want to work with us to be able to put through that amendment. The third is the completion statuses. So one of the things that we're tracking is the actual completion for each of those participants, a grade, if you will, right? Whether or not they completed, whether or not they didn't complete, whether they withdrew. We're going to want to be able to track that, and that typically will hold up closeout processes. And then the final one is full profiles in the registration system. So as Diane was talking about, there's a slim profile and then there's the full profile. If you only fill out the slim profile, we're going to be asking for those full profiles to be completed before we allow for a closeout. So now we're going to go in and I'm actually going to show you within Upskill how to close out your funding request. So earlier when Chris showed his screens, he didn't have stuff that appeared because he was putting in his first request. Your org admins for your business will be able to see all of the requests that have been put in for your business. So as an admin on the MCCS Half Center testing, I'm able to see everything. And actually, if I refresh.
Chris, can you share your screen?
Oh, I can. That would be probably super helpful. Sorry about that. Thank you, Michelle. Everyone seeing compact member funding request screen? Okay. So as I was saying, I see all of the tests that all of our workforce development coordinators and the staff have put against the MCCS Half Center testing. You would obviously, if you're an admin, you would see all of the ones for your organization. Otherwise, you're only going to see the ones that are there based off of what you've entered. From the dropdown, you can see the active, you can see the inactive, which are ones that have been closed out, or let's say drafts that have been withdrawn. But really what I want to focus on are the funding requests requiring my action. So when we look at these, the one that I'm going to work on today is actually the compact member webinar closeout. So on the right-hand side, you have your dropdown, which allows us to view, and that's going to bring me into the course itself. It's going to allow me to go over to our participants and see our participants and the trainer information. That's our general view for if you want to go in and check on a specific funding request. So would help if I didn't hit the wrong button. Sorry about that. Oh. So generally speaking, there would be a tab here that would allow me to do the closeout, but apparently when I built this and took it through, it's not pushing to that final piece. So if you would give me one moment, please.
Chris, to allow you time for that, do we want to move to Jen for amendment?
Yep.
And then come back to that at the
That
end?
works. Thank you.
Hold on just a moment. Is that okay with you, Jen?
Yep. So if there was a change in your training, if you had originally asked for 3 people to come and you ended up having 4 be able to go, or you need to change the dates of your trainings, you can go in and, as Chris had showed you in that drop down, there is an amendment request. You can change the dates, you can change and add a participant. There is a comment box where you can notate anything that you'd like us to know when you submit that amendment. Just know that that comment box holds the comment. So if you submitted one for, excuse me, for a change in date and put in something, it's going to hold for the next one if you added somebody. So you can either date it so that we know that that comment applied to your 7/18 amendment request, or you can delete it so that it doesn't cause any confusion. One thing to note, you could add participants, but you can also remove participants. If you remove a participant, that is more if your participant list that you uploaded was wrong. So you thought you selected in your uploads the correct template, but it looks like you have the wrong people in there. So you can remove them that way. If they didn't attend, we prefer you to grade them as did not attend so that our completion rates show correctly versus removing their participant. And that would be in the grading, which Chris will be showing you once we can get that closeout screen up. And then I think that completes the amendments. Same thing with sendbacks. So if anything on your application initially with the funding request did not come over correctly, or if we needed any more information, we have what we call a send back email that will send it back to you. It emails the person who submitted it. It emails the admin that you've added for your company. It also will email your workforce coordinator. And there's a box in there that will tell you what was off and what we need corrected in that email. It is comes from an MCCS no reply. So if you need to contact your workforce coordinator, make sure you email them, not the no reply email. And their email is in that bottom of the email form that we have that goes back to you. Same thing with closeouts. If you submitted your closeout and the participant information for completion was missing and you didn't tell us if they completed, did not attend, or withdrew, we would send it back to you and tell you what's missing. If we went in to check that the registration system had full registrations for all of your students, and if any of them are missing, that same send back email would have in the comments, we typically give you the instructions on how to do it. If it's not a huge list, we will tell you which people are missing. We do have some character limits, so if it is a very large list, we might be more broad, but if it's a couple people, we'll notate who is missing in that system so you can go in and fix those 1 or 2 people. We do ask that your sendbacks that we send back to you have a 5-day turnaround because it does affect the 45-day window that you have for closing out, whether it's on the application or the closeout side. And if If you resubmit it to us, but whatever action you needed to take isn't completed, we'll end up having to send it back again because it needs to go back to that stage where you can go into the application and make those edits. So if, say, your workforce coordinator, Diane, was going to help you with some registrations, wait until they have let you know that those were all set and you have completed that before you send it back to us to close out. Because if we get it back for closeout and they're still not done, we have to send it back to you and in that stage again so that we can get it back when they are completed. It just kind of it leaves out any confusion when we have the two systems we're looking in, so that our registration team only gets that once it is ready to be closed. And I will check in with Chris to see if he has any update.
So happy accident. One of the things that Heather and Chris shared earlier was that if you have a college related training, the college is going to be completing the closeouts for you. And when we built this, we built it as if we were using one of our colleges for delivering it as opposed to an external training partner. So the reason why I can't close that out is because I'm not the college. So what I'm going to do is when you're in that upskill, and let me bring up and share my screen for a second. So when you are in upskill, you're going to have that drop-down box where this is where we would put that amendment like Jen said. It would also have a field that says closeout. And what's going to happen is you're going to click on the closeout information for that course that you're looking to close. It's going to bring you into your participant listing. So these are our trainers, our trainees that we had in that program. Next to each one, there's a drop-down box. That's where you're going to hit the drop-down box and actually enter the grade that they had for each of those programs, right? So whether or not they completed, whether or not they withdrew, once that's done, it's going to allow you to then close out the funding request. So you're going to hit submit. What we will do is once that closeout information goes into the system, Jen and Crystal and our registration team will verify the information that's in Lumens against the grades that are within the system. If you have a program that, much like I did today, right, you're clicking on it and it won't allow you to close and you've passed that date, view that. And when we view the application, and it was the first pot I should have looked, it's going to show us that my training provider was Eastern Maine Community College, right? When I view this, it's going to show me that my training provider was one of the college campuses, which is why I can't close it. Now, under Chris's application that he put in earlier for his private training vendor, that one I would be able to go in and close. So I apologize that we weren't able to demonstrate that. When Jen and I went through and built those, I built them with a college partner, not thinking about the fact that it would block me from being able to close it. And Heather, I'm going to turn it over to you, correct?
Sure. So as folks were in Upskill Maine, you could see that there's some tabs on the top that were recently added. One of those is scholarships. So under this grant, scholarships are available to any of your frontline workers to help pursue an academic certificate or degree program at Maine's community colleges. So through this, your employees can apply directly within Upskill Maine. So that's a great new addition. There's also some opportunities for additional grants through Maine Quality Centers and Put Me to Work. That work is done directly with our community colleges. So if you've had a conversation with them, either they can put in an application for you or you can. And what this funding really is, if you click on that section, it really gives you some insight into what projects it qualifies, but it's usually new hires as part of their onboarding. What's coming soon is that you will be able to upload your W-9 directly into the portal. We expect that coming within the next month or so. as well as a resources page directly within Upskill Maine. Currently, this is on our website, and I'll switch to this page of what we do have available for resources. That link at the very bottom and the QR code will take you to the mccs.me.edu website. Some of the documents that our team was walking through, the trainings, those are accessible on that site, as well as links to Upskill Maine and links to our registration system. Of course, we will have this recording available as well. It will be bookmarked to certain sections. So if there's something that you know that you want to go back to, certainly feel free to use this as a resource, as well as your workforce development coordinators. They are your biggest advocates and are available throughout the week to help you with whatever your needs are, whether you get stuck with an application, a send back, an amendment, they are there to help you with that. So I know Kristen has been working on some questions in chat, but was wondering if anybody had any questions live. And for this part, I'll just ask you, at the bottom of your screen, there's a little react button. You'll see a little heart icon. There's a raise your hand feature under that. So if you do have a question, if you don't mind raising your hand or giving a visible one of these so that we know that you're interested, and we'll call you first come, first served. Or if there's anything in chat too that either folks are not completely clear on or could use additional information. We have a number of our workforce development coordinators on this call. Colette?
Hey, good afternoon. This was all extremely helpful. Thank you so much so far. I have one question from way back at the beginning, really. Do funding requests cover registration costs for skill building and like training type conferences, knowing that travel and meals, et cetera, are not reimbursable, but the registration costs for conferences that are training type things? And I wonder about that and whether it's affected if that conference is out of state.
So thank you for your question. You can attend conferences, work-related conferences. They are an allowable expense, actually just the conference fee itself. So whatever it is costing you to attend the conference, a reminder that lodging and meals and travel and airfare and mileage can't be part of that equation, but the actual conference itself can be. And I know with other conferences that sometimes at the conference, you can take an additional training or a course or that type of thing. That would be something you could include as well. So that would be just a typical training request. I didn't do a great job because I was thinking I was in a hurry. My timer was going to go out, but it's a third-party trainer who you want to train your employees. It's a course that you need them to take that you're going to put in as a stage 2 funding request. And that course we prefer it to be with us through the community colleges, but if it's for something more specific that's at a private or state university, those courses are allowed as well. They all go against the $1,200 that each of your employees gets as a yearly amount of available grant funds for them to utilize. And we would never go beyond funding 50% of a particular training. And then any amounts less than that would be due to either the overall cost or the fact that the employee had already used up a sum or a major portion of that $1,200.
Very informative. Thank you very much.
Thank you both. Any other questions? If you're following along in the chat, you will see that we are working on continuous improvement and making the system even easier to use. So we anticipate a future state with only one system. So that's really exciting. But for now, you need to use both. There was a question about scholarships as well, and when training funds can be applied to community college billing for students. Those do need to be approved prior to the start of the semester. But students are eligible for up to two per semester, up to 6 per year. Any other points? And what we can do as well is record separately the closeout process with the stages of what student completion can look like as well, that we will get out to folks for what a third party or in-house training may look like, so that there's insight into that.
And
But
to
with that,
Heather's point about the combination of the systems, what will be nice about that is as you're going in and you're putting your students, your employees into those trainings, that's when you will enter in all of the registration information. So it's not like you'll have an extra step. We're trying to make this as seamless as possible, but that will be going live at the beginning of 2026.
And we have a question about yes, on training and education, how to promote that within employers. We do have some assets available, especially on the scholarship side, to help promote those internally, whether it's posters, emails. We'll make sure that that's included on the resource page as well. I think there may be something just speaking preemptively about the scholarships, but knowing that employers do need those resources, we can certainly draft some content about that.
And Colette, one of the greatest pieces is if your organization currently has professional development dollars, the easiest sales pitch on this is it really allows you as a company to stretch those dollars, right? Because you're able to utilize those as part of the match. If a company has not invested in professional development dollars, then the conversation really is around these dollars are available to every main business that registers as a compact member, which means now you can start to create that use case, right, for your business being able to make those investments into professional development opportunities for their workers. And really, if we think about our teams across the state, the easiest thing for us to be able to do is to help upskill our folks within our organizations to be able to fill new positions or existing positions that may have changes, versus having to bring someone in from outside. So it's a nice opportunity to be able to give people the skills that they need so that they can advance in their careers, earn higher wages, and be able to meet that demand from main employers.
Fantastic. And if there are no other questions, we will get this recording processed and out to you this afternoon, again, with those links of resources and the questions that were asked here in chat, memorialize those as well. And as always, if you have any questions, please reach out and we will be here to help you through it. Thank you. Have a good afternoon, everybody.